Okay, today's exercise is Lab 0304, which is adding a search interface to users and adding a search interface to bugs. And so the first thing I'm going to do is kind of make sure that my repo is up to date. So go into my issue tracker. Am I screen sharing, Grant?
Yes.
Cool. Do a pull on my issue tracker. Make sure we are up to date and go up a directory, open this in. I would really like to know in Windows 11 when I right click Shift F10. I'd like to know how to get like the full context menu automatically. I really don't like the 2-click option here where I have to get to open with code. If I could hold down Control, if I could hold down Alt or something to just get directly to that option. I don't know the answer there, but you know, the little things like that make a difference sometime. Okay, so let's open up the code base and close that folder. Get rid of the welcome screen and user list. Now, into the lab here. Yesterday we did do a search on keywords. Now, let me log into Atlas, MongoDB. And one of the first things that we need to do, kind of learn about yesterday, is have a full text index to kind of enable that on our database, right? So that we can search by text. And so my database is this issue tracker v2. And I made that index in the shell. So I would connect via the shell, copy that. And what I'm going to do is pull up the lecture notes from yesterday, which is what? Notes on date, search interface. So there's the lecture yesterday. And here's the query that I'm looking for to create an index, a text index named full text. So again, I'm going to connect via the shell, copy that mongosh command, open up a standard command prompt, paste that in, and it should ask me for a password, of which I've got in my credential document right here. And, wrong password. Let's try it again. Connect. Copied and pasted the wrong thing. Okay. And so now, show DBs, use issue tracker, and there's our collection name, DB movies. Let's show collections. This will be DB users, create index, run the risk of typos when you type this, but let's type it anyways. Shouldn't be too bad. Full text index created. And I'll do that also while I'm here. I'll go ahead and create the index on my bugs collection as well. Okay, so run that command twice on users and on bugs. That kind of set us up to do keywords. And we go through here. let's kind of look at our collections and users. Right now we have there we go, creation date. And so at some point our users, when we were seeding our data, did not have a creation date, but then at some point we started creating users with creation dates. And so you will need creation dates on your users. Now, if I go to my create user, like post register, and here I have a creation date property of a new date. So this is what is needed to create new users with that property. So Grant, you mentioned not having that, or do you have that? And some of your users have dates and some not?
Only some of mine have them, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so what you could do is delete the users that don't have them, and that's simple enough. I mean, or maybe you go about adding that creation date. Maybe we edit the user and just kind of manually add a field here. Let's see. Add field after bug comments, creation date, and for this one, I'm just gonna make one that's a long time ago, or at least let's just do a year ago, 6/15/2022, and cool. And let's click on update to kind of get that creation date in there. This bug or this user, click plus, add field after creation date. Certainly the hardest part of this lab is working with dates. Let's do 6/15/2021. Just kind of jump a year back each time. Document updated. Okay. And now all my users have a creation date. So we got 6 users, 6 different creation dates going back to 2021. Everything else is 2023 or newer. Okay, so when we're adding this search interface, we're only doing it to the list route. And again, something that was a little bit different about this route is that we put database logic in the route yesterday. And so I'm going to do that again. I think that could be changed. But what we need to bring in from our database file is the connect method, so that we can connect to our database inside of the route. And so here's our list route hit. Now, yesterday we learned that we're going to be sending the data over via the params object. And so kind of going back to the lab, the first thing that we need is an optional keywords. If it's not there, don't do anything with it. Otherwise, use the text in your match, right? So we can kind of start searching a user by keyword. And so this is very similar to what we did yesterday, but we'll just kind of do this piece at a time. And I'm going to kind of hold off on this get all users and the response there. So let's bring in a destructured object. Now this object is going to destructure the request params. again, coming from the front end in a query string, and we're going to say keywords. And what I'll just do at this point is I don't know, res status 200 JSON message keywords. Just kind of send the keywords back. JSON is a method. Okay, and so if I kind of boot this up and Postman, you know, we're going to send keywords over and then they're going to send the keywords back. Send it to the server, get it back from the server. And we kind of close. When you see these dots up here, that means they're not really saved. So if you Control S, the dots go away. Control S, the dots go away. Control S, the dots go away. Then you can just close everything. This would be like listing all users, right? We're starting with users. And we're no longer sending data over in the body, but instead in the params. Notice keywords. It's kind of had that saved from the past, and keywords is developer in the query string. Let's boot up the server. Clear the screen. npm run start dev. Let's see, we're on port 5003. We're hitting 5003. API users list keywords. Okay, and so not there. So let's take a closer look. It says list route hit. Keywords, params, click send. Coming across as undefined. Oh. Good morning. Okay. What are params? Params are different than the query string. Params are what we were doing before. Params were like, hey, I have a variable that's the user ID, and it's part of the URL. What we're doing is a query parameter, right? Point is, did I just delete the keywords? I did. This is not rec.params, this is rec.query. It's coming across in a query string. Now we send in the params keywords. Again, we see it in the query string, rec.query. Now you can see developers being sent over. Bingo. Okay, so we know that this is a variable that holds the word in this particular instance of developer. So we'll go ahead and create, again, stages. The first stage of a pipeline is the match. So we'll kind of say, yeah, we got a match that is basically no filters. And if keywords is truthy, meaning there's something in there, this is where we're going to do our search. We didn't talk a lot about like the syntax here. I guess the point that I wanted to make, the difference between the shell and JavaScript, I've said it before, but there are slight differences. And so yesterday we used that query builder on Atlas, and then we just said put it in Node and then copy and paste. Point is, the syntax might be a little different than what we've seen using the aggregate pipeline. I remember building aggregate pipelines in the shell. And so it might just be a little bit different than what we did. So match.text equals object search keywords. And that is going to be how we do our do our match. Okay, we know there's a match. Now, let's build a pipeline, const pipeline, and we will build this out. It's an array of objects. The first object is $match, and we're going to point it at the match object. And there's the end of our pipeline for now. And then we're going to connect to our database. Const db equals await connect. And create a cursor await db collection. This is the users aggregate. Fun word. Pass in our pipeline. And then we say await cursor to array. And res JSON users. Send those users back. And then we don't need to send back the keywords. Okay, so now all we're doing is filtering our users by keywords. And again, kind of just looking at our data. So like Bob Smith is a Gmail. Everyone else is a rankin.edu. So let's start by providing no keywords. Just making sure we didn't break anything and that our user list still sends back all of our users. Looks like it does, including Bob Smith, who is role of developer. Now, if I just put keyword capital D for developer, we do get developers back. It appears to be case insensitive, which is fine. We get 3 people who are roles developers. Now, if I put the word rankin, we get rankin, and rankin, but no Bob Smith. You know, I'm pretty sure I'm overlooking it somewhere. Grant, tell me if you see the number of objects that are returned. Like, this is an array of objects. How many are in here? It would be useful to see, hey, here's 5 documents. Do you see that number somewhere on here?
I don't right now.
I don't either.
I've just been looking at the size of the file returned.
Yeah, me too. That would be useful, but I'm not seeing it. You can kind of like see this differently. Okay, but that's okay. Everything's working as far as our keyword search. And again, if you kind of leave keywords off, we still get all the users. And so doing a keyword search is easy enough. Again, kind of the hard one here is going to be date. And so role, the parameter is optional. If falsy, do nothing. If it's not falsy, then only show users with the provided role. Looking at the data, we got like quality analyst, we've got technical manager, developer. So this kind of, is a repeated process here. So this is still filtering. Filtering is done by the match stage. So let's kind of bring in a role. And then you say if role match dot role equals equal to the role variable. And so we just, apply a role here. If it's there, it updates the match to include that additional filter. By saying, hey, we're looking at this attribute, the role attribute, and applying the role variable that's passed in to our front end. So now, if I say, okay, give me the ranking, and we get, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 users. But now if I say role of business analyst, currently get none. Let's see if I have any ranking business analysts. Quality assurance, developer, technical manager. No, I do not have any business analysts. So let's change that to quality analyst. And now case sensitivity on this one. For whatever reason, the word rankin was not being case sensitive, but it is being case sensitive here. My recommendation on this is, get your data kind of standardized in the database. And right now, the data isn't standardized. Whether the first letter is capitalized or not, maybe the data isn't standard. Okay, then that's fine. You could always read the data out and convert it to lowercase. And so, you know how to take a string and convert every character to lowercase so that, whether they give you quality analyst like this or quality analyst like that, well, you could always kind of come in here and say, to lowercase, something like that, and take what they give you, and now it's case insensitive, right? So that's an easy problem to solve, just takes a couple more steps. So that would be keywords and role. Okay, the age. Measured in days. And so we got max age and min age. So let's kind of start with those. And measured in days, so let's just do one at a time. Let's just do max age. And let's see kind of max age. And so it's like 5 days old would be, you don't want to see any users that are, the max age is great, is older than 5 days, right? So it needs to be less than the max age. Does that make sense? Because greater than would be older than 5 days. Like you're going further back, 6 days old, 7 days old, 8 days old. That's greater than 5 days of the max. So now you can do something like if max age is sent, we're going to set our match, and our property is our creation date, I believe. It's creation date equals, and it's almost counterintuitive. Less than or equal to new date So again, anything greater than 5 would be like 6 days old or 7 days old or 8 days old. So it's almost, it's weird to say, okay, I want to say less than the max age, which means more recent than that. I swear there's more to it. I've solved this before and I thought there was more to it. Let's kind of send that in. Okay, so right now let's just get rid of the keywords in the role and send it. We're getting all dates, and so creation date 6/15. So that's today. So like if I say max age of like 2 days, and you would expect that to trim, well, Charles Corrigan would be trimmed off. So I would expect Evan to be there. I would expect Charles to be trimmed off because he was created a year ago. Bob would be trimmed because he was a week ago. Keith Forney would be trimmed. Jeff Scott would be trimmed. Pretty much everyone would be trimmed if this works, and it doesn't. So max age of 1, max age is 2, 1. I thought there was more to this, so I'm not surprised that max age isn't working. So let me think about this a little bit. Okay, I knew there was more to it. Working with dates is always the challenge, and I was looking at some old code that I wrote to solve this, and it was like it was lacking. My old code was lacking, and I knew that there was something that I was missing. And we have to write some custom date logic to kind of solve this. This didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Less than like the number 5, a new date with the number of 5 did not make a whole lot of sense. And so this was not making sense to me. So let's kind of walk through this. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get a variable for today. So let's say, hey, today is a new date. Okay, and this is going to get the current date and time. Okay, but we're not really concerned with the time, and so in JavaScript we can kind of get rid of the time by doing this set hours, set minutes, set seconds, set milliseconds even. Okay, so we're getting today's date and then kind of clearing the time because that's not important to us. Now I'm going to make another variable and say, okay, this is like 5 days ago, right? So I want to say let's make a past max. I'm just going to make it called past maximum days old. It is basically a copy of our date object, right? So it's going to start off with today's date, but then we're going to modify it. We're going to say past maximum days old, set date to today, past max dot get date minus our max age. Wait a minute. Past maximum days old. Okay. So we're going to say, okay, we got this variable, new variable, maximum days old, is basically starting at today. And we're setting it to today's date minus 5. In our example, we keep using 5. So 5 days ago. And now we can use here we just say if there's a max age, and again, this is always counterintuitive to me, past max days old. So less than, it might, again, whether it's greater than or less than, it's just weird to think about, but it might be greater than. So here, greater than this date from 5, I think it's greater than or equal to. So we're saying, hey, the creation date is greater than, 5 days ago, which is, in this case, 6/10. Okay, so a little bit of logic. I knew that I needed to write a little bit more. Working with dates. Dates are always the trouble child. I know that there are even libraries in NPM around just working with dates, right? So I don't doubt that there's a library out there, I've seen them, that can help you work with dates, because doing this kind of logic to, see if a date is within a range is, if I hadn't solved this before, it would probably take hours to solve this by Googling and whatever, right? So let's now, so again, it kind of goes into the originally max age, today, create a new date based off of today, and we're going to set that equal to today's date minus 5. So take off 5 days from today, which is 6/10. So past maximum old days is basically 6/10. And we're going to look, if there's a max age, set the creation date property greater than 6/10. Okay, so all that makes sense to me. If I go 2 days old here, let's see, we're still getting 0. If I take that off, again, less LTE. Okay, we're getting data back. Let's count the records. So 2 days old certainly would be me, but I would not expect Charles to come back, Bob. I think this is just all users. I think there's 6 records altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I even clear that out, 222, we're getting the same data back. So we're not filtering anything here. Okay, and so now what do? We got to troubleshoot. So let's kind of go into here and let's do this. So I'm gonna put a little debug user, and this is gonna say the max age variable is max age, and the past max days old is past max days old. So let's throw that in, and we get the max is 2 June 13th. Yeah, Tuesday, June 13th. That's what I would expect. That's exactly right. So I know that this is working. If max age is truthy, we set the creation date. Well, the number 200 filtered out some data. 1, 2, 3, 4 records. So I was created on 6/13. So I would expect if I say 5, 10, okay. 10 days old is good. Like I'm actually getting, so here's the deal. 10 days old, I'm getting the right records. I think this is working, but I think there's a problem with the data with my user. Let me see, because I manually created this. So let's just look at my user, 2022 6/15. It's almost like the first two users that I manually inserted the date, the creation date, they're not playing nice. Because if I say, okay, give me the users that are 10 days old, 10 days old is 6/5. Well, I get anything newer than 6/5. I get Bob Smith, I get Keith Forney, I get Jeff Scott, and those were all created within the last 10 days. Right? If I say the last 20 days, I get Julia Bradshaw. Oh, maybe I had Julia Bradshaw there before. I didn't scroll down to see Julia. Yeah. So there's my 4 users. This is working. It's just not working for the users that I manually inserted the creation date on. So I got to ask why, and I got to look closely at the data to answer that. So like if I look at Bob Smith creation date, it is a date object. And like, let me just copy this data of Bob Smith. Right, so let me just, this is Bob, this is his creation date. And then if I go to me, and I say Evan's creation date, oh, Evan was created in 2022, that's why. So of course 2022 is way more than 10 days old. Okay, we're good. This is working. Max age is working. And so now we just get to do the same thing for min age. Grant, is yours good then?
Yeah, mine's working.
Yeah, right on. Did you notice my flaw was that I forgot that I created myself in 2022? Did you
I,
realize
I
that or?
I just did right before you said that. I remember him saying something about putting it 1 year back.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Yeah, 10 days old. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. If we got a max age, let's also do a min age. And this complicates. Now we could say it's gonna, our if statements is gonna be more if max age and min age, then do one thing. Else if you just have the minimum age, you do something else. Else if you just have the max age, you do this. So it's gonna change our code block a little bit. Okay, come on, if, okay, I just need to, So this is our logic for doing this to max age. We got to do the same kind of thing for minimum days old. Const past minimum days old, starting it off with a new date of today. Past minimum days old dot set date past minimum days old get date minus min age, and I think you got to take off 1 because it's kind of a starting with 0 kind of thing. So you subtract the minimum age minus 1 because again you start the count at 0, so I think you got to take off 1 day because of how all that works. So again, you want to say so it's between 3 days old and 10 days old, but minimum age is like that lower bounds. And again, the subtracting 1 is just the counting from 0 thing versus counting from 1. And so here, match dot creation date equals LTE less than or equal to min days old, past min, less than, comma, GTE, past max. Else if it's just min age, we set match dot creation date equal to $, just LTE less than or equal to past maximum days old. Okay, so once you solve it once, it's not too hard to solve the other way around. Less than past minimum. Oops, I almost made a mistake there. That might have took me a second. Minimum days old. Less than past min, greater than past max. Okay. Let's boot this up. We got our 4 users there. Let's just check the minimum age by itself. And so again, let's just kind of go nothing and we get all of our data. And do we have a user created today? Is that a thing? Because that'd be an easy way to filter him out. 2023 615. I don't think we have a user created today. So let's add a user. John Doe at gmail.com. Pretty sure we should get some validation telling us our roles. Let's say you are a business analyst and create John Doe. Now if we list all users, at the bottom we've got John Doe who was created today. So if I filter at least 1 day old, that should say yesterday, and I should get, I get all my users: Evan, Charles, Bob, Keith, Jeff, Julia, and no user who was created today because it's not minimum age of 1 day old. If I say 10 now, okay, that'll chop off Evan and Charles. So here's the 4 users that are 1 day old, at least 1 day old, up to 10 days old. Very cool. Okay, save my postman. Okay, this one, save, close, save. back to the lab. Definitely the date was the hardest one to work with. Min and max. Okay. So all of these are done with the match stage. Now we have a new stage, right? Sorting is its own stage. And what we didn't do yesterday is sort by, we just sorted by one thing, right? But if two things have the same value, then you can set secondary options, meaning sort by this first and then sort by that second. So we'll do a little bit of that here. We can sort by given name, family name, role, newest, and oldest. So let's bring in a sort by parameter. No longer using get all users. So maybe I take that off for now. Again, we're writing the database logic in here. I could write a get all users function that takes a pipeline in, get the data. So we could refactor this into a database tier, but again, no big deal. So we got to sort by, right? We got to bring in a value to sort by. And in Postman, here's our sort by. And the values that we can sort by per the document are what? Given name. So let's just start with given name because that's pretty simple. I'm going to read this requirement here because there's a default sort which we're going to define. Default sorting by the given name is described below. So we're going to do given name, then family name, then created date ascending. So if you don't specify one of these options, right, there's a default sort. So we're going to do that by setting the default sort to first sorting by given name, then by the last name, family name, then by created date. So if two people have the same given name, then sort by their family name, and if two people have the same given and family, then sort by created date ascending. Ascending is a :1, descending is -1. So let's kind of set the sort stage. So this is our match stage. And all that's kind of done here. Match stage, okay. After the match stage, we're going to create a sort stage. And it tells us given name first, ascending, family name, and creation date. Let's sort equals. Okay, and then here we set the sort stage to the sort object. Put a comma in between our objects. Pass it into the pipeline. Again, kind of no filters. All of our data should now be sorted by given name first, which is Bob, Charles, Evan, Jeff, John, Julia, Keith. So we are definitely sorting by family name, or given name first, and then without testing that, if this is let's do a switch on the sort by. So we kind of have our default sort set here. So we don't really need a case for default. We'll set a case for given name. So if given name, really we don't need to do anything here because this is the default, but that's kind of what you do, and then you say break. And you say, okay, case of family name. We're going to change the sort object to this and break. Case of role. We're going to change the sort object to this. And then break. Are you familiar with the keyword break and how it kind of stops it from falling through?
Yeah.
All right. Newest. Okay, dokie. So family name, :1, kind of go back to the requirements. Family name ascending, given name, created date. Okay, role is role ascending. Given name ascending. Family name ascending. Creation date ascending. Newest is creation date descending. -1. Oldest is creation date ascending. Okay, and so let's just kind of go up here, and if I say list my users by role, wait a minute, sort by, pass in the word role. We get developer first, right? So here's 2 developers, and then the first name after that. So Bob before Jeff. And we get quality assurance. Before technical manager. Okay, business analyst. Now here's what we're seeing. Here's the problem. Problem is the capital letter D is coming in our sort before the lowercase letters. So it kind of goes capital letters first, and then it kind of starts back over with business analyst in the database, lowercase b. See that?
Yeah.
So does that make sense what's happening, at least? The problem? Yeah. So the problem is kind of the ASCII, a capital letter A is like equivalent to the decimal number 64. And then a capital B is 65, so on and so forth. Capital C is 66. And you get all the capital letters, which are lower numbers, which is why you're seeing them first, in ascending order, like 64 ascending up to 65, 66. And then the lowercase letters, or whatever, 26 letters later, so it's like the lowercase letter A is like 111 or something. And so that's why that's happening. It's just how the letter ultimately gets translated into a decimal equivalent, through some binary math. It's a long way of saying that. You got to kind of normalize your data and get them all comparing lowercase against lowercase. And so how might we do that? That's a good question. You know, I would just write a script to put all the data in the database in a normalized, you know, in a standard fashion, or just, you know, since we're putting in data in all sorts of formats, there's no standard. That's the problem. And you, the best way is to just solve it with the standard data, but maybe. So if we got to sort, yeah, I'm like 90% sure. Yeah, there's like no two lowercase here. I don't think. No. I didn't think so. It's doing what we're telling it. I'm not going to make it a problem. There's a couple ways of fixing it. Probably the best way is just get your data kind of in the database in a standard format. And that would resolve that problem. Okay, let's do creation date. So let's sort by newest. So you got John Doe, who's created today, Julia Bradshaw on the 8th, Jeff Scott on the 8th, Keith Forney. So we're going date in descending order. I think oldest was the other key value that we put in there. Charles Corrigan, 2021. Evan, 2022. So definitely those are working. And that's our sort stage. Okay, page size and page number. Page size is essentially your limit. Page number is like, hey, I want the third page of results. All right, so let's do page size. And while we're at a page number. All right, after the sort stage, let's do the skip and limit stages. Page number, page size, by default the page number is 1, by default the page size is 5. Make a variable to pass into our pipeline. Page number minus 1, because we start our count at 0, times page size, and limit is the page size. This will be really cool to implement this when we get to the front end. Next two stages, $ skip, colon, whoops. skip. Limit. And now if we don't do anything, hit send. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're getting limited to 5 results because that's a default. But if I add in a page size, I set it down to 3. Those are your first 3 results. And if I say to page number 1, still your first 3 results, but if I say page number 2, I get the next 3 results. Page number 3, and it's just your last 1 result. One new stage that I want to introduce here is maybe I'm getting back like things I don't want to, like created bugs and bug comments. Maybe I don't want those fields back, right? So how can I limit the fields that you get back? And that's done with the project stage. So you can do a project stage to determine what fields you do or don't want. And so let's make a variable called project. Let's say we want the given name, yes, family name, role, full name, email, my syntax, there we go. Let's just say we want those 5 fields, right? And you can tweak this. It's also worth noting that the pipeline, you could put the stages in different orders, and that can have an effect in performance. And a lot of a benefit of aggregate queries is that you can write very efficient queries. You can write inefficient queries, but the point is you can kind of switch these around and transform the data in different manners and in different orders. So I'll do this project here, maybe after my sort. So the project stage with the project variable or the project object, comma. And now when I kind of hit this, you could see I'm only seeing these fields. And let's go back to the lab. They're all optional. All combinations are supported. Creating indexes. Now you can create indexes via the shell. So let's do that. Create index MongoDB. And so the reason you want to create indexes on these columns is that, presumably users are going to be searching for data in this way. And if users are searching for data in this way, you want those queries to run fast. That's what an index does. It allows you to run an index fast or run a query fast. And so that's why it's like, hey, we're creating a search interface. DB my collection create index on that field. I don't think you need to provide the collation anymore. Like saying, hey, this is the United States Um, let's kind of, and there's, you can really dive into indexes and creating. Um, you have a whole lecture on creating indexes itself. Wildcard index, that's not what I want. Let's. So DB collection create index on the column :1. Unique index means you can't have two of the same values. Expires sparse of true, not remembering what sparse true does, but pretty straightforward syntax. So DB users create index, column name is creation date, and in quotes, creation date :1. And it gave it a default name of creation date. So there's our index for that. Let's do given name :1, family name :1, creation date :1. The other way around, again, it's just all those different ways you can query the data, right? So family name first, then given name, then creation date. I'm gonna go up 2, and then I add, in front of given name, I add the role. Role of 1, given name, family name, creation date. So that creates our indexes, and you could always go on Mongo and go users, indexes, and you could see that we created the creation date, and here they are. This is really cool. These indexes on Mongo, they'll tell you how often they're being used, and so you could, if you have indexes that aren't being used, there's all sorts of tools that you could delete the ones that aren't being used and whatever. Okay. So that brings us to exercise 2, at which Grant, we discussed you're going to run with that one.
Yep, I'll get started on that.
Okay. I'll pause the recording, and then when I resume, we'll go over Grant's answers for the second exercise. Again, in the same fashion that we've been doing. If you're an online student, please do the same. Refer to the solution only if you're stuck. All right, I have resumed, and so Grant went ahead and did exercise 2, the bug list endpoint. And so we started, let me pull up the classroom. Here's his screen share. And Grant, I'll let you kind of walk through the lab. I guess the first one is the keywords.
Yeah, so the keywords was the same as the user's keywords, making sure that the query has all of the new query parameters in it, but keywords was the same, and that's just matching the text to the search.
All right, easy enough. Yeah, go ahead and demonstrate it for us. Cool. And then the next requirement was classification.
Next was classification, so that's matching exactly to what is put into the query, similar to like searching for the role for the users.
Cool. Very nice. Next requirement was min age and max age.
This ended up being, I think, identical to the users one since it's using the same type of dates.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, nothing different on this one.
Cool. Then we've got close. Now you and I kind of hashed through this a little bit, but we simplified it and said, look, by default, show all your bugs. If close is true, show all closed bugs. If closed is false, show all open bugs.
Yes. So here's closed as false.
Okay. I'm going to flip that to true. All right. And then what happens if you leave it unchecked? Should get both.
Yes, that gets false.
There we go. Go back to your code for me. And one thing that's worth noting is when you're sending it across on Postman, the values true and false are strings. That's why you test them inside of quotes. On line 106, you're testing true inside of a string true instead of a Boolean true. And so you're just worried about the types there. Okay, and then the next requirement was sort by.
Yeah, so for this one, I have all of the switch case for all the different options for sorting. Um, the default was newest, which was just created date descending. So that's up here, but I also have it listed within the switch so that they can search by newest. And then oldest is the opposite. Title is title ascending, and all of them are creation date descending from this point forward. Classification is the classification. These two I had to put in quotes in order to get within the object for the assigned to and bug author in order to get down to the full name.
All right, let's do that. Let's do created by. Let's sort by the created by, which, like you said, is kind of by it's a sub document, right?
Yes.
And you're kind of going kind of quick there. So
Yeah, sorry. The first, I think those were old ones that didn't have the bug author yet. So this was actually the first one that had the bug author, and it's
okay,
Charles Corrigan.
okay.
And here's this again. I had to do the page size because my limit was on 5.
Right.
And then here's E,
Yep.
E again,
Yep.
and G.
Perfect. Awesome. And what's next? Page size and limit.
Yep, this ended up being, I think, the same defaults. That kind of saw the limit when I accidentally did that in the last one. That's set to 5.
Yeah. You just get 5 results because it's limiting by default. Cool. And then, did you add some indexes on your table?
Not Actually, I forgot to do that. Just the wildcard text index.
Okay. Um, well, you add those indexes, and that's the end of your lab. And we did that. We did that earlier today, so that's not too hard. It's just create index on your shell. All right, man. Well, thanks for the demonstration. Go ahead and save and push and commit your work. So this lab and these 4 labs are kind of what prepares you for the next hands-on test, and that's where we are. We're at the point where I'm going to go ahead and open up the next hands-on test, and I'm going to set the hands-on test due date to next Sunday. That because I don't want to set the due date for this Sunday, and so that will give. I would recommend starting the hands-on test this week. Now, that would. I'm going to also give some time next week to work on the hands-on test. So you don't have to finish it this week, but I would recommend starting it this week. And but that's where we are in the class. Is we've kind of finished up these 4 labs in '03, and now we're ready for the hands-on test. Going back to tying in Mongo and doing CRUD operations on a database with Mongo with express routes and API, all that. So yeah, a lot of information is covered. I guess that's kind of why I'm stuttering over my words. And I'm trying to think about what specifically was covered, and it's frankly has just been a lot in section 3. So the hands-on test it'll be on Inside Ranking. It'll be due next Sunday, which will be the 25th. I am going to record a quick video on just the explanation of the hands-on test. And so there's going to be one more video this week where we go over the hands-on test and kind of preparation. But yeah, that's where we are.